Hello and welcome to today's lesson on the distributive property, lesson 1.4. Today we'll be learning about the distributive property and how it can help us and assist us in simplifying expressions. So looking at today's lesson, we see the mailman here needs to distribute the mail to every house on his route, and we'll be thinking about the distributive property in a very similar way. So why do we distribute? Well, it allows us to simplify an expression that contains both multiplication and addition. Once again, allowing us to simplify a given expression. So what is the distributive property? Well, for any real numbers, a, b, and c, remember the real numbers is basically any number that you can think of, any and all numbers. A times the quantity b plus c is equal to ab plus ac. An example of that would be, let's say we have 2 times the quantity 4 plus 6. Now I know that order of operations would tell you to take the 4 plus the 6 and add that together, and that's what we did here. And we got 10, but just to verify that it does work, we'll take the 2 times the 4, and we'll also take the 2 times the 6. So you can kind of see that we're taking 2 times 4, getting that here, and we're also taking the 2 times the 6, and we're getting that over here. Excuse me, the sign in the middle, the plus sign, remains the same in both, and now we just continue to work. So we have 8 plus 12. Is that the same thing as 2 times 10? 20 equals 20, so it verifies. Another way to think about this, the distributive property, is to think about it with a minus sign in the middle. So we're taking a times the quantity b minus c, and sure enough, it's the same thing, ab minus ac. It's just that sign in the middle stays the same. So another worked out example, if we take 5 times the quantity 3 minus 7, would be the same thing as 5 times 3 minus 5 times 7. 5 times negative 4, is that the same thing as 15 minus 35? And sure enough, negative 20 does equal negative 20. So that is the distributive property. Now let's work out some problems, some examples to simplify these expressions. I will do the first 2. We have a total of 6 problems here. You can see that we're going to work out together. I'll do the first couple here with you and then ask you to try some on your own. So let's see here. If we have 2 times the quantity x plus 5, I want to simplify this. So I'm going to take 2 times x. The sign in the middle stays the same, 5. And 2 times 5. Excuse me. So we have 2x plus 2 times 5. 2 times x is just 2x. We still have the plus sign. 2 times 5 is 10. Can I do any more combining or simplifying here? The answer is no. So my end solution is, sorry about that box, 2x plus 10. Looking at example number 2, very similar, except now we have a negative number here in the front. So when I distribute, I'll just have to make sure I remember my multiplying by negative rules. So I have negative 3 times w plus negative 3 times 4. So negative 3 times w is negative 3w plus negative 3 times a positive 4 would be a negative 12. I could leave my answer like this, but I can write it a little bit nicer, so I don't have to be so redundant with all my symbols here. If I'm adding a negative, that's the same thing as subtracting, so I can just write negative 3 minus 12. And there's my answer for that problem. Moving ahead, let's look at example number 3. You'll notice that it's very similar looking in that we have a quantity 3g minus 12 times another quantity 2, similar to these two, except that the 2 is now kind of in the back or at the end of our original quantity here. So distributive property still holds true. As you know, multiplication, the commutative rule does still apply here. So I can still do 3g times 2 minus 2 times 12. So I have 3g times 2 minus 12 times 2. So 3g times 2 would be 6g minus 12 times 2 is 24. Can I simplify any more or combine any like terms? No. So my answer is 6g minus 24. Number 4, I have the opposite of m minus 12. So I can think of this a couple of ways. I can think of it as just taking the opposite of everything. So the opposite of positive m would be a negative m. And the opposite of subtracting 12 is adding 12. And there's my answer. Or I can think about it as negative 1. Anytime I just have that negative sign by itself, I can always imagine a 1 there. And m minus 12. And I can distribute this way. So I have a negative 1 times m minus negative 1 times 12. Negative 1 times m is negative 1m. Negative 1 times 12 would be a negative 12. Minus a negative is the same thing as adding. You can just kind of fill that in. So I have negative 1m plus 12, which is the same thing as negative m plus 12. So either way I think about it, I can still get that same answer. Let's take a look. We have 2 more examples here. These 2 problems do require, us to do a little simplifying. So when I look at these, the first one, I'm going to look for, how do I simplify this first? Well, it's the distributive property. So I'm going to take care of that here. But I'm still going to have on this minus 2x, something I'm going to have to work with towards the end. So I have 6 times 2x plus 6 times 3. And you might be ready to just write these down, just do 6 times 3 in your head and write 18 there. But I'm still going to show all my steps and all my work here. 6 times 2x is 12x. Plus 6 times 3 is 18. Minus 2x. So now I look, are there any terms that I can combine, any like terms here? Well, I have 12x and I have a minus 2x, so I can combine those. 12x minus 2x is a total of 10x. And I still have the plus 18. So my final answer is 10x plus 18. Looking at number 6, 3 minus, I have 4 times w minus 8. So I'm going to treat this as a negative 4. I'm going to just change my sign just so I can think about it a little bit nicer. I know that adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting, so I haven't changed my problem at all. And I'm going to distribute that because I like to work with addition problems more so than I like to work with subtraction. So I have 3 plus negative 4 times w minus negative 4 times 8. So that negative 4 times the w minus negative 4 times 8. And let me just work these out a little bit. So I have 3 plus negative 4 times w is negative 4w. And I have negative 4 times 8 is a negative 32. So to make things a little bit easier, I can make this a plus, since I have minus a negative. And I can combine my 3 and my 32 to get 35 plus negative 4w. And I like to have my variables in the front, so I'm just going to write negative 4w, and I have plus 35, because that's a positive 35. And that is my answer. You might also have written 35 minus 4w, which would be acceptable as an answer as well. We just prefer to have the variables in the front of our expressions is all. Okay. The next page, of problems. I have 5 of them here for you to try. If you could please stop the recording at this time and try these problems on your own, and then pick up for the solutions in just a moment, please. Alright, let's work through these problems together and get our answers. So simplify each of the following expressions using the distributive property. So I'm just simplifying. So I'm going to do my distributive property here, and this is going to give me 9x plus 9 times 5, which is 9x plus 45. Once again, the number is just this number by itself is in the back, so I can still distribute just from the other side. So I have 12 times x, or x times 12, minus 12 times 7, which is going to give me 12x minus 84. Let's look at number 3. I'm going to distribute this negative 10 to both the 5 and the minus 6y. So this is going to tell me that I have negative 10 times 5 minus negative 10 times 6y. Negative 10 times 5 is negative 50. Negative 10 times 6y would be a negative 60y. But because that's a minus a negative, I can make that plus. So negative 50 plus 60y. Also acceptable would be 60y minus 50. And that's actually the preferred answer. It would be with the variable in the front. Let's look at number 4. I'm going to have to combine this like term here at the end. So let's distribute the negative 6 first. When I do that, I get negative 6 times negative 2m plus negative 6 times 3. And I still have that minus 2m here at the end. Simplify this a little bit more. Negative times a negative would be a positive 12m. Negative 18 minus 2m. I can combine the 12m and the minus 2m. I get 10m minus 18 is my answer for number 4. And to do number 5, once again, I do not like this minus 5m here, or this minus 5, so I'm just going to make that a plus negative just so I can get rid of that minus sign. So I have 2 plus negative 5 times the y minus negative 5 times 6, which is 2 plus negative 5y minus a negative 30. But I can once again make that a plus. 2 plus 30 is 32 minus 5y is my answer. So hopefully you did well on those. Continue to watch the remaining videos if you still need assistance, and contact your teacher if you have any other questions regarding this lesson.